Today we're going over all things filtration. Let's go. Filtration is one of the most important aspects of fish keeping. It can really be detrimental to your tank if you don't have proper filtration. So getting it right is the best thing that you can do. What we're going to go over today in this video is brands, types of filtration, and my personal preferences for, well, every scenario that you might be facing. Now, chances are, if you're a beginner, you're probably overwhelmed with all the brands and types of filtration and everything. So we're going to go over types of filtration first. And the main four that I like to go over are internal filters, hang-off back filters, canister filters, and sumps. I don't have a ton on sumps in this video because I'm not super familiar with them and I don't want to lead you down the wrong path, but I can give you, the general view of them, but I'm going to go into the details on all the other ones. Before we jump in, I have a goal to reach 10,000 subs by the end of this year, and right now I'm at like 1.4. So if you're not subscribed and you find this video useful, please subscribe. It really helps me out. Thank you so much. As a side note, that when I'm going through all types of filtration related stuff, when I say filter media or media, that refers to like the filter cartridges or the little pieces of plastic or the sponges that live within filters that collect all the gunk and all the good beneficial bacteria. Just so you know the term before I start slinging it around. The first type of filtration that we're going to go over is hang-off back. And that's because it's really the commonly used one amongst beginners, primarily because they come in those, all-in-one kits, and it's usually your first take on filtration for your new tank. These are really, really good filters. It's just, there's some pros and some cons, and I want to go over them. Now, the pros to hang-on back filters is that they're incredibly inexpensive. They're very easy to set up. Like, it does not take a rocket scientist to set one of these bad boys up. They're extremely customizable, and well, they're just very beginner friendly. They also save a bunch of tank space, and they help with oxygenation or surface breakage, to where you get that oxygen exchange in your tank by breaking the surface of the water. In all, personally, I think that the pros outweigh the cons, but let's get into the cons. So the first is they're not as aesthetically pleasing as other types of filtration. They hang off the back, they're pretty clunky, and they're kind of hard to hide. Also, because the water tends to kind of waterfall into your tank, they happen to be noisy, or it's just from the mechanics inside of the filter itself that make them pretty loud, like clicking or humming coming from the hang-off back filter itself. Now, if that's not a big issue to you, then it's perfectly fine. If you don't care about aesthetics, you're not going for a super clean aquascaped look, then you're totally good. The other thing is they do require a little bit more maintenance because they usually tend to be smaller than other, types of filtration. So you need to do maintenance more often, but thankfully maintenance on one of these is extremely easy. The one other con is they are prone to spills or leakage because they do live on the outside of your tank. So that can be, a con where you get water splashed around every once in a while. It happens with a lot of different types of filters, but it's more common with hang-off back filters. All in all, if you're a beginner who doesn't really care about the aesthetics or the noise that could happen from one of these filters, they're pretty good. I will say that I prefer to use these inside of nano tanks or smaller tanks, not necessarily big, like if you're talking like a 50-gallon tank, I probably wouldn't use a hang-off back filter. But in all, they're pretty good filters. I rate them a 6 out of 10, but that's from personal experience with them. I don't think that they give as good of filtration as other, systems do. And also, I'm very big on aesthetics. I am kind of picky when it comes to that kind of thing, so I prefer to go different routes. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, the giveaway winner, it's going to be said in this video. Internal filters are next on this list, and these include both the internal full functioning filters and also sponge filters. Both of these are great options. They have their pros and cons, but really they are probably one of the more commonly used ones amongst beginners as well. But also, I will say that there's a lot of aquarists or aquarium people, fish keepers, that very much like sponge filters. The pros for internal filters include high filtration, pretty much just as inexpensive, if not more inexpensive, than a hang-off the back filter. The leakage problem that you had with HOBs are no longer in effect, because an internal filter, because it lives inside of your tank, you don't really have to worry about leakages or spillages or any of that, because all the water is contained inside of your tank. Most have a built-in aeration system because they live inside the tank and kind of, send bubbles everywhere. And also, they're not as noisy because they live inside water, and water is a pretty good dampener of noise. Now, the cons of internal filters are they take up a ton of space inside of your tank. So if you're working with a nano tank, they take up more space. So you may want to go a different route because you're losing swim space and driftwood space and all that stuff. Also, when you go to maintenance them, they have to be pulled out of your water. So usually when you pull them out, it leaves some sort of debris in the water column. So it makes for a messy maintenance session. And it's not necessarily the cleanest or the best looking thing after you maintenance it. Also, there's less available customizable media for it. Like a sponge filter has a sponge, right? Like there's really no, customization to that kind of thing. In general, they also require more frequent cleanings because, well, they get dirtier and they're not as big as other types of filters, so they very easily get overwhelmed. But also the other thing, the big elephant in the room, is that they're not very aesthetically pleasing. Like if you have a big sponge filter inside of your tank, it's very noticeable and it's very hard to hide. So if you're using sponge filters, it's gonna be, well, kind of an eyesore, and take your vision and your focus towards that rather than focusing on, the fish or the scape or whatever you're looking at. In my experience, I do still like to use internal filters more than hang off back. I'd rate them about a 7.5 out of 10. Primarily, once again, if you don't care about aesthetics as much, if you just really focus on function over looks, an internal filter is a good way to go. I think sponge filters are one of the most commonly used filters amongst people that like more natural looking tanks and not super aquascaped and pristine and precise. People that go with the more homescape look usually go sponge filter. If you haven't joined the Discord, you're missing out on giveaway callouts from all my other platforms. I'm doing giveaways all the freaking time, so make sure that you join the Discord. I gave my girlfriend the list of the fiance, sorry. If you watch this, I'm sorry. I gave the list of the commenters from the last video for the giveaway to my fiance to pick a random name, and she chose DP Exotics. Congratulations. I've actually seen you around for a very long time. I know that you're an OG. You comment on a ton of the videos, so I'm actually really happy that you won. I'll get to you on what your gift is. The next type of filtration are canister filters, and these are very, very common amongst experienced fish keepers or people who are aquascapers because they provide a more clean look. There's a tons of pros and tons of cons of these, but let me tell you, this is kind of my realm. This is the type of filtration that I use. Let's start with the pros of canister filters, and the main one being that, well, they're the cleanest looking one. I have a canister filter running in this one, and these lily pipes right here, I don't know if you can even see them, but those are the only things that actually end up being visible inside of your tank. So if you're going for an aesthetic feature from your filtration, this is the one to go with. It is the cleanest looking filter. Now, along with that comes the superb filtration, the water flow, the surface agitation, all of those things that you really need, along with the ability to add a surface skimmer into your lily pipes that allows you to get that little layer of gunk on the top of your water surface into your filter to remove it and have your water looking pristine. It looks like this is just glass. You can't even really see the water, which is my kind of look, right? In addition to all of these great things, there's some models that come with heaters inside of them. That way you don't need to put a heater inside of your tank, which really, really improves the aesthetics of a tank. Also, I don't think that I mentioned, but this one behind me is running right now and you can't hear it, which means that they're extremely quiet, and also they're very customizable. You could put any type of filter media in it and you're just gonna have a good time. With all those pros, there has to be some cons, and the first one is cost. These truly are more expensive than most other options. Your internals, your sponges, your HOBs are all less expensive in a big way. If you have a 50-gallon tank, these canister filters are gonna cost you upwards of $200 to $300 depending on the model and brand. So keep that in mind. In addition to that, you also have the initial setup. It is more difficult to set these up in the very beginning. If you're a beginner, it just takes a little bit more nuance, not a crazy amount, but it does. Also, the maintenance of it is a little bit more difficult. Like it's a little bit more finicky than the other ones where, you just swap out a sponge or you just kind of wring something out. These, you have to take them apart, you have to clean out the hoses, you have to do some definite trickery to get some of these pieces clean. Also, the lily pipes, if you get the glass ones, let me tell you, you have to be incredibly careful. So make sure that you probably pick up the steel ones that are they still look classy, they still look very clean, but they're a lot less fragile and you can't see the gunk inside of them because they're steel. If you don't get the setup right, they can leak all over the place. And I mean in a big way. Because if you get it wrong and it disconnects or anything, it could act as a siphon and actually drain your entire tank. So you gotta make sure that you take your time with setting up a canister filter. Oh, and did I mention cost? I think I did. These things are expensive. Anyway, I rate them a 9.2 out of 10. They're great for small tanks. They're great for big tanks. It really doesn't matter. It's just going to cost you some money. That's the biggest drawback, but they give the best filtration, some of the easier setup, super customizable, all the tricks, like they're great filters. I think the investment into a canister filter is extremely beneficial. It's an upfront cost that I think will save you money in the long run because they last years, and if you upgrade to a new tank or whatever, the canister filter can go along with you. Just depends on if you're willing to set it up and maintenance it correctly. Last are sumps, and experienced fish keepers large and wide really rely on sumps, but I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I've never had a sump before in my life. So I'm not going to sit here and act like I know every single nuanced thing. I've owned all the other filtration types except for sumps. And that's primarily because I keep a ton of nano tanks. And nano tanks, while you could use a sump, it would be kind of silly because you can get away with using a lot of different types of filters for a nano tank. The pros to sumps is because you have a massive amount of water volume, tricky things like overfeeding or just spikes in parameters from things dying in your tank don't really tend to affect the tank parameters as much because you have so much water volume, usually about 20 to 40% more than just having your tank. All of the equipment is extremely customizable, which is another pro, and it usually hides within some sort of cabinetry, so it's very well hidden. The cons would be that usually sumps are pretty loud because of constant water exchange, and also the evaporation rate is way higher in sumps because it's just constantly moving water, it splashes places and everything, so you have to do more frequent water changes even though you have way more water. Even though they are hidden behind a lot of cabinetry, they do happen to take up a lot of space still. With my canister filter, it doesn't take up a bunch of space down there, so I'm able to have a bunch of different equipment and, tools and stuff. With a sump, I wouldn't be able to do that. Also, they lack practicality. You can't set one up for just any tank. It usually is a big tank that you want to set them up for, not just your run-of-the-mill, nano tank. I'll probably get beat up by all the big aquarium people, but look, I think that it's an 8.0 because of lack of practicality and not just a bunch of people using them, and they're really noisy. Beat me up if you want. Now, let's talk brands. I'm only going to cover 4 brands, and it's going to be Fluval, Owase, Eheim, and Seache. And honestly, Seache is only in there for one particular reason. But in general, these are the top dogs of the filter industry. Now, there's a couple other big names out there, but I'm going over these to save you some time. I'm giving you the top dogs of the industry. Now let's talk Fluval. They're extremely well known for their canister filters, but they also have really good hang off the back filters as well. The FX series and the 107 to 407 series are really, really good filters. They're strong, they're reliable, they give you everything that you want, right? Super easy compartments to clean, and also a multi-stage filtration system. They're just really good filters. Now, because they're such high quality filters, you're gonna end up paying a premium. They're pretty expensive. So for your FX series, you're gonna end up paying somewhere between $300 to $450, and for your 107 to 407, you're gonna pay $100 to $250. Look, it doesn't come cheap if you want something really nice, right? The only issue that I have with Fluval is the fact that I don't think that they have a model that has a heater that's integrated within it. If they had that, it'd be the top of the top. I couldn't ever talk about any other filter because it would just be that good. Anyway, I think that Fluval is a 9.2 out of 10. They're a very, very good canister filter. Let's move on. The next brand is Owase, and I personally run one in this tank behind me, and I love it. Can you hear it? No, it's incredibly silent. It's also very sturdy and reliable. These filters are very strong and they're some of the best in the game. My favorite series from them is the Thermomaster because, well, it has the heater built into it, and that really allows you to not get the clunkiness of a heater inside of your tank. If you need to run a heater for your tank, having it in your filter is really, really convenient. It ensures proper, temperature throughout all the water because the water's always entering your filter and getting pushed back into your tank. It just really helps with overall look. You don't need a big old clunky heater in your tank. It's all trapped in your filter, which I absolutely love. What I don't love about the filters are they're clunky. So they're not very user friendly. A Fluval is very easy to take apart and everything. These, I've had some struggles with some of the latches and stuff where they'll kind of snap and actually kind of hurt. Especially when they're wet, you really slip on one and you hit your finger against some stuff. But other than that, other than the clunkiness, I actually just really like these filters. But mainly because, like I said, the Thermomasters are awesome. They have the same kind of multi-stage filtration as Fluval, around the same prices, I want to say, pretty on par with the same prices as other big name brands. So yeah, I rate them a 9.0. They're one of my favorite brands. I just think that Fluval does it a little tiny bit better because they're not as clunky. Now, I have Seache as a brand in this list because of their internal filters. I absolutely love their internal filters. The ProShark Nano 250 is one of the best filters on the market. You can't tell me any different. I took one because I needed to get a cycle going, and I put it into this tank behind me, and it cleared it up super quick. And the 250 is only about 4 inches. And because of the water flow, it made this thing crystal clear. It's a very impressive filter. Also, in order to clean it, it's an absolute breeze. You just take it apart at its hinges and trust me when I say that maintenance on that thing, I actually kind of look forward to doing it because it's that dang easy. So I can't say enough. Also, all of this for a very low price of $30 for the 250 and up to $50 for the big ones to run a tank like this. Trust me, totally worth it. I absolutely love them. Oh, and they come with a bunch of attachments for a spray bar or aeration, things like that. Super, super great value. For cost and functionality, I'd have to rate this a 9.5 specifically for their internal filters. I've never used anything outside of that, but yeah, I absolutely love those filters. If you are still around, then you're probably a big fan. And I just got merch in, and I think it's freaking awesome. Duckweed, not even once. And then it has a little Taytoe Tanks emblem on the front. Go check it out. Link in bio. Thanks. Or description. Whatever. Next on this list is Eheim. And let me tell you, this is a heritage brand. It's been around forever. It's one of those ones that's just a classic. A bunch of old heads use this. And let me tell you, it's a pretty dang good brand. They are very, very good filters. You're going to end up paying a premium, just like all these other ones on their canister filters. I've never actually used a hang-off back filter from Eheim, but I do definitely know that they exist and they're good filters. The issue with these is that I feel like they're kind of outdated compared to the Fluvals and the Owases, where it kind of feels like they're stuck in the past in their heritage traditions. So I don't really use them. For me, they're an 8.9 out of 10. I don't have a ton of experience with them, so I don't want to say any more than I already have because I don't want to lead you guys astray. Overall, for hang-off back filters, I would go Fluval. If you're going for an internal filter, I would 100% recommend Seache filters. They're fantastic. For canister filters, I'm honestly super split. I love Fluval filters, but I also love the Thermomasters from Owase. So I don't really know. One of those two is what I would say. If you stuck around to the end of the video, I thank you so much for your support. Honestly, this whole experience with social media and everything on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, it's been a crazy ride, and you supporting me is really the only reason that I do it. So thank you so much, and well, I'll see you guys around.